So we will send you a link to the session afterwards with any follow-up materials, including this PowerPoint. To help the webinar run smoothly and to minimize background noise for other people, please can you mute your microphone and turn the camera off on your computer. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a Q&A panel, so please ask any questions throughout the session, and we will answer as many of these as possible during the 15-minute question and answer session, which will come at the end. Finally, you can make the slides clearer on your laptop using the double-ended arrow on the top right-hand side of the screen, which will make them larger. Okay, so our two speakers today are Sue Riley and Philippa Hoy, both from WRAP. Sue's main focus is in consumer food waste prevention, coming from a food industry background. She has worked in product, process and packaging development, plus technical and quality roles in food and manufacturing, and was general manager of an advisory service business before joining WRAP. Philippa focuses on supply chain food waste prevention and has a background in environmental consultancy and promoting resource efficiency, particularly within the food and drink sector. On the right-hand side of the slide in front of you is an overview of this webinar. In the next hour or so, we will provide you with information on food waste, discuss how you and your business can help tackle it, and highlight the guidance that is available. Plus, as I mentioned previously, there will be an opportunity for question and answer in the last 15 minutes. I'll now hand over to Sue, who will kick off with our objectives for the session and some background information.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much to Helen for the introductions. So, meat, fish and poultry is a priority area for us, and so we have three key objectives for this webinar today: to raise the awareness of the issue of food waste, to highlight and help and guidance that's available, and also to encourage those working within the category to take action. And these actions could benefit your businesses both financially as well as reducing your environmental impact. We quite often discuss supply chain and consumer food waste prevention separately, and so we're also keen to bring these together and talk to you about everything businesses can do to tackle food waste, all under one banner. The court-hold commitment is a responsibility deal to improve resource efficiency and reduce the carbon impact of the UK grocery retail sector. WRAP is responsible for the agreement, which has three targets around packaging optimisation, supply chain and household food waste prevention. Phase 3 will be coming to an end at the end of this year, and of course our primary objective is around achieving our targets. So although we understand that we have limited time now and that some actions can be taken at longer term. So we also wanted to use this session as a way of helping you to gear up for Court-Hold 2025, which is the next voluntary agreement, and if possible to help you and your businesses to reap some of the benefits sooner rather than later. So there is a link on this slide for more information on the Court-Hold commitment and Court-Hold 2025. So just before I hand over to Philippa, I just wanted to briefly mention our Meat, Fish and Poultry Digest. This is a short and interactive document that can be downloaded from our website from next week, and it will be regularly updated with all of our latest information. It's actually part of a series of 9 digests which cover specific audiences and categories, which bring together all of the information that you might need to tackle food waste in a user-friendly format, so hopefully a really useful resource.
Thanks, Sue. Hi, everyone. So I'm quickly going to run through the key advice, guidance and tools we have for the meat, fish and poultry sector to help in the battle to reduce waste in the supply chain. First of all, we'll start with a little quiz. It's after lunch, wake you all up. No prizes, I'm afraid, just for fun. How much waste comes from food retailing, wholesaling and manufacturing businesses in the UK each year? Place your bets. Okay, it's 6.5 million tonnes. So well done to those who got this right. You've probably been reading the WRAP reports. So from the report that this statistic comes from is also this diagram, which just gives you a bit of a feel for where that waste breaks out in the sector. You can see the split between manufacturing waste at 4.9 million tonnes and retail and wholesale at 1.6 million tonnes. But if you add up the food and packaging waste across these areas, 4.3 million is food waste and 1.7 million is packaging waste. Now you'll see on the left-hand side, the bagel, if you will, there's 2 million tonnes, it might be a little bit difficult to see, is animal byproducts, which is not legally classified as waste. However, there's still a huge amount of waste to go after in this sector. And across the industry, this waste is valued at 6.7 million a year. So there's a huge cost-saving potential to go after here. Now, it's true that the manufacture and distribution of protein products is generally more efficient than other categories in terms of waste. It was mainly as the result of higher value, but there is always more to do. And as seen here, research by the Product Sustainability Forum has shown that pork, lamb, beef and chicken all feature in the top 50 of grocery products in terms of their overall resource impacts. Now that's emissions, water, waste and household waste. So even small reductions can have a considerable environmental and cost benefit for the meat, fish and poultry sector. So what's the best way to tackle this waste? Based on the extensive research that W.A.S.T.E has done in this sector, we've developed our 555 approach to waste reduction to help companies take the most effective actions to drive out waste. So this approach covers 5 key areas we want, actions we want companies to take. The 5 areas that we found give the biggest bang for buck when reducing waste, and a simple 5-stage process to help tackle waste hotspots. And I'm just very briefly going to talk you through these 5 areas and the tools and resources we've got to help you along the way. Firstly, of the crucial actions is measuring the waste. Often companies don't have a real understanding of how much waste they're actually producing. So this mapping of waste is absolutely crucial. Secondly, it's very important to cost this properly. Once you know what you're dealing with, you want to know how much it's actually costing you. Many companies still are only looking at disposal costs, but there's much more value that's gone into the waste than just those costs. There's ingredients, there's packaging, water, energy, labour. When all of these are considered, it can really make a difference to the business case for any action that you might want to take. So what you can see on screen is W.A.S.T.E.'s suggested calculation for the true cost of waste. Number 3 on the list is to set a reduction target. Often we see that there are tolerance levels set for the amount of waste that can be produced on a process. And as long as these levels aren't exceeded, nobody takes any action. And we really want to encourage people to set an increasingly reduction target that's reducing over time. Taking action on hotspots. So once you've mapped your waste and you know how much it's costing you, you can target the areas that are going to bring the biggest benefit in terms of waste reduction and cost saving. And we've got some advice on how to do that in a moment. The 5th crucial action is to create a culture of waste minimization. And senior management really need to lead here. And it's very important that a company should have a waste reduction policy. Also need to engage the employees who can be the eyes and the ears of where this waste is occurring and how we can get rid of it. Now, W.A.S.T.E.'s been working on a set of tools called Your Workplace Without Waste to help you engage with employees. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes going through the basics of this new program that we hope is going to be of real interest to the sector. And certainly we've had quite a bit of interest from companies already trialing this out with us. So what is it? It's an employee engagement program focused on waste reduction in the workplace. It's designed to be used across manufacturing, distribution and stores. retail stores. And the reason we can do this is it's trying to engage employees to change their behavior, trying to teach them how to be and act, not telling them what to do. We want them to come up with the what to do bit. This is an ongoing program that we're going to be developing in the future. And we've got some, for example, posters and a screensaver to add to the notes and activities that we've already developed. So how does it work? It's interactive training sessions with staff, and they're designed to achieve the points that you can see on screen. So helping staff understand the impacts of waste and why we should be acting on it, learning the techniques to find the waste, measure it, and put an appropriate cost on it, and then coming up with the solutions to the problems themselves and owning those solutions so that they put them into action to reduce waste. This training is provided via a cascade process. So we've provided detailed notes for someone in the company to read and understand and then use to train a team of champions. And these champions then go out and run the activities with staff. The program is designed to be very flexible. We know everybody's really busy and that it can be difficult finding time for training. So the activities are mainly only 20 to 30 minutes each. They can all be run together in a program of about 3 hours, or you can split them up over a few days or weeks, whatever's going to fit your business schedule best. We've developed an entire program, but you can pick and mix the bits that you want. For example, if you already have a sustainability engagement program, you might just want to add some new elements to that or incorporate into induction training or something along those lines. So hopefully it's really flexible and going to give you what you need. As a toolkit element of the program has 3 parts to it. First of all, a guide to kickstarting a waste reduction campaign, which gives you lots of advice of how to make a campaign a success, including ideas about communications and that sort of thing. Next come the train the trainer detailed guidance notes that I mentioned, how to run an activity, how to follow it up. We provide the talking points, so everything's there that a trainer would need to roll this out. Then the third element is all about maintaining momentum, and there's a guide with hints and tips and content to help you with this idea of embedding a culture and ensuring that your campaign isn't just a one-hit wonder. And then we come on to the actual training resources that are part of the program, and these have 2 elements. Firstly, we've got a really brief, to the point, self-study guide for managers. And this has got all the information and tools they need to make the right actions on waste reduction, and including how to make any employee engagement campaign a success. Then the second element is, as I've mentioned, these short interactive activities to run with staff. And we do hope that managers will join in those as well, but they've got the extra resource on top of the activities. So we're piloting the work with industry companies at the moment, but all the materials will be published hopefully early in October, and then, as I mentioned, we've got the posters and a screensaver coming a bit later, and more in the future. If you'd like to find out more, we've got a short 2-page overview note we could email, or you could listen to a webinar that I ran last week that walks you through the program in a bit more detail. So that was the 5 key actions we want companies to take. Now we move on to the 5 areas that WRAP research has shown has the biggest potential for waste and cost reduction. And the first of these is improving systems and processes. Now this is all about things like range rationalization, improving forecasting, extending product life, running promotions to ensure they don't produce waste. And these are all areas where small tweaks can make big gains. And we've got guidance on many of these areas to help you. Packaging. So there's been a lot of progress on primary packaging. And we don't think there's too much more to go after there, but there are still really big opportunities to cut down on secondary and tertiary packaging, and we've got some help for you to do that. Sue mentioned the digest of material specifically for the meat, fish and poultry sector. We're also going to do a similar document that pulls together all our advice and guidance on packaging, so that will be coming soon your way as well. So the third key area is redistribution of surplus food. So amounts being redistributed for human consumption, either through a secondary market or a charity route, have increased significantly over the last few years. And retailers particularly have been taking action on this, but there's still so much more that can be done. Now, it's been recognised that there are a lot of barriers to redistribution. So the industry, and with WRAP support, we're trying to make things easier. It was recognised that a common language would help, and standardised practices to help bring together those with the surpluses and those collecting them and distributing them to people together. So WRAP is working to develop a standard partnership model for food redistribution. And this will hopefully provide a structured and efficient approach to creating food redistribution partnerships, taking into account the needs of both sides of the equation and providing a structured approach to identifying the food surpluses available and the routes that we can get them out to people. This model is designed to be neutral. It can work with all the various channels for redistribution, either a charity or a commercial route, national interface networks, or if you're working with a locally direct with a church or something like that. There's no judgment on which works best. It's horses for courses. So we'll be publicising this when it's complete, and we hope that it's something that you can use in conjunction with redistribution partners. The fourth key area is applying a lean or continuous improvement type approach, and I'm going to come back to that. We've got some tools to help you do that in a moment. And collaboration, we found the biggest gains can be made when companies collaborate with their customers and with their suppliers. And it's the decisions that are often made outside of a company's focus sphere of influence that can dictate the waste that arises that is in their power. So getting people together to talk about these issues and find solutions has been shown to be really, really effective. So that's the 5 key areas for waste reduction that with the biggest potential for waste reduction that we found. So the final 5 of the 5-5-5 approach relates to the 5 stages of WRAP's very cunningly entitled W.A.S.T.E methodology. Now this is a short, straightforward problem-solving discipline. It's based on lean and continuous improvement techniques, but it doesn't have a word of Japanese in it. It's to help prevent waste within a company's operations. So if you're looking for something that's really easy for people to get their heads around and get action going quickly, this is a great tool to use. Now there's another tool that takes on a wider scope. So WRAP's whole chain resource efficiency toolkit expands the W.A.S.T.E problem-solving approach across the entire product value chain from farm to fork. This one also looks at waste in all its forms, so not just food and packaging waste, but also including product and materials waste, water, energy, time, and even space. The process involves mapping the resource impacts of supply chains from farm to fork, looking for waste, water, and emissions hotspots, and then developing an action plan that's going to reduce that resource use, but without compromising any commercial objectives. This toolkit includes guidance on how to get all the necessary members of a supply chain together to collaborate, as I was just mentioning. So this helps you start the conversation and get people together to make the approach really effective. I just want to mention some of the whole chain resource projects that are ongoing at the moment and should be completed and published in the next few weeks. We've got a pork project with the Co-op and Tulip, another pork one with Morrison's and their livestock unit, the Woodheads, and then we're looking at beef with Tesco and Two Sisters Food Group. So these projects are going to highlight where the waste hotspots along the chains are and the waste reduction opportunities that were found and the potential savings that can be made. So it should make really interesting reading. Okay, so hopefully I've been able to get across the benefits on offer by taking steps to map the waste, cost it properly, and target hotspots, with supply chain collaboration and employee engagement the key to success. I've covered a lot very quickly, but the Meat, Fish and Poultry Digest covers all of this and provides the links to all the detailed guidance and tools that I've mentioned and lots more. So we've covered reducing waste in the supply chain. I'm now going to hand back to Sue, who will discuss ways to help consumers reduce waste in our homes. Thank you.
Thanks, Philippa. So now we're going to take a quick look at consumer food waste prevention, looking at some of the facts and figures, highlighting opportunities for action in meat, fish and poultry, plus also showing you where to find useful information that can help you and your business to take action. So the same as with Philippa, just a quick question to start with. So in the UK, we waste around 15 million tonnes of food each year. So how much of that comes from our homes? Is it A, 2 million tonnes, B, 7 million tonnes, or C, 14 million tonnes? So just while you're thinking about the answer to that question, that 15 million tonnes of food waste that we produce in the UK every year would fill 120 million rubbish trucks, and if they were put bumper to bumper, they would actually reach from London to Singapore. So that's quite a lot of waste coming from the UK on an annual basis. So the answer to the question is actually 7 million tonnes, and that 7 million tonnes would fill Wembley Stadium to the brim 9 times over. So this slide shows the breakdown of that 15 million tonnes, and you can see that household food waste is the single largest contributor, which might be surprising to some of you. You might ask whether consumers are actually bothered about food waste, and I'm pleased to say that they are. This slide is taken from the FSA Biannual Public Attitudes Tracker Report, which is available on the food.gov.uk website, and these results are from the May 2015 survey. And it shows that when people are asked about their concerns over wider food issues, that food waste comes out as number 2. And it is more often than not in the top 4 when I've seen the results of this survey. But what's more surprising this time round is that it even ranks above the price of food. So our research shows that consumers are not only concerned about food waste, but they also expect and want the industry to help them to reduce food waste in their homes. So going back to that 7 million tonnes, we split this down into 3 categories. Unavoidable, which for example would be banana skins, bones and eggshells, which even we wouldn't suggest that people eat. Possibly avoidable, so things like potato and apple peelings and crusts of bread, which we would suggest people find uses for. And then avoidable food waste, which is food that was edible up until the point that it was thrown away. So as you would expect, our main focus is actually avoidable household food waste. And of that 4.2 million tonnes of avoidable waste, it's actually worth 12.5 billion. And there are normally 2 main reasons given for this waste. One is that it's not used in time, so that's costing 5.6 billion. And the other is cooked, prepared and served too much, costing 4.1 billion. So between the 2 of them, they account for 9.7 billion of that 12.5 billion in terms of cost. So again, it's these top 2 reasons that we tend to focus our efforts, and we would recommend that you do as well in any actions that you take. So looking at avoidable household food waste, by weight, you can see here that meat and fish don't make up one of the largest contributions. However, when looking by cost, meat and fish are one of the largest food groups at 17%, and that's actually worth 2.1 billion. And also meals, including homemade and prepared meals, which would include meat and fish, another 17%. So hopefully you can see why meat, fish and poultry are a priority for us in terms of consumer food waste prevention. So this table is taken from our household food waste report published in 2013 using 2012 data, and it shows meat and fish waste split by avoidability. And you'll see that there is a significant level of unavoidable food waste in poultry. However, when looking at the levels of avoidable, which is our target area, there are similar levels between poultry and pork, ham and bacon. Also taken from our main household food waste report, this table shows the reasons for disposal. And whilst not used in time and cooked, prepared and served too much are still the top two reasons, you can see that there are differences between poultry and pork, ham and bacon. So we would ask that you have a think about what the potential reasons for these differences are, and also see whether this can help you to take action. And in this final table, this shows that in terms of the 21% reduction in avoidable food waste that we've seen between 2007 and 2012, that in fact no change was seen in meat and fish in comparison with other categories where you can see reductions in levels of waste, so for example bakery. So that's another reason why meat, fish and poultry are one of our priority areas. And we believe that some of the reasons behind this lack of change could be around people's lack of confidence in terms of freezing and defrosting, and not realising that it's safe to freeze a product right up to its use-by date, rather than that having to be done on the same day that they've bought it. So moving on to the action that you can take to help tackle this issue. If you don't remember anything else about consumer food waste prevention after this webinar, please do remember that you can download this interactive PDF. This takes you through all the actions that you and your business can take to make an impact and help prevent food waste in our homes. So it includes checklists, for example, for MPD work and range reviews, checklists for pack copy approval, and there's also information on our labelling recommendations and packaging innovation, plus links to other useful information. So we recommend a two-tier approach, and in fact use it ourselves. This is consumer engagement, which is mainly our Love Food Hate Waste campaign, and this works on raising awareness and encouraging behaviour change in consumers, and it would also include any in-store activity and online activity in terms of engaging customers. And then we also talk about changing the retail environment, and this is about enabling consumer behaviour change. So what does changing the retail environment mean? Well, essentially we're talking about making changes to labelling, products and packaging that can help consumers to waste less food. And as I've just mentioned, you will be able to find more information about our labelling recommendations, which are centred around three areas: date labelling, storage, freezing and defrosting advice. And you'll find that more information in our Concept to Consumer PDF. So how do these changes help? Well, essentially they make it easier for consumers to buy the right amount of food, to store it correctly, and to use what they've bought before they have to throw it away. So we use the phrases buy, store, use. In terms of the behaviours that we're trying to influence, these are planning ahead, understanding dates, storing food correctly, making proper use of the freezer, understanding the value of packaging in food waste prevention, getting portion sizes right, and also using up leftovers if you have them. And essentially the activity of our Love Food Hate Waste campaign is designed to do exactly this. And we ask that you think about how you can do the same with your products and also with your communication channels. Something else that we'd like you to consider is the role of packaging in consumer food waste prevention. So the research in a report that was published in March 2013 shows that there is a demand for on-pack guidance about storage, and the majority of consumers say that they would use it if they realised it was there and how useful it was. Consumer confidence is high around storing food, but it can be misplaced. And many consumers don't recognise that packaging can actually protect food in the home, although they do recognise that it has a role from factory to store and then store to home. And then in terms of packaging innovations, there are 3 innovations that consumers rate as most useful to them in terms of helping them reduce waste at home. Those are reclosable packs and packaging that makes the product last longer, and also split packs as well. So essentially what we're looking for is a consistent message to consumers that will encourage and enable behaviour change. And what we believe that is particularly important for meat, fish and poultry is helping consumers to understand the meaning of a use-by date. So, for example, reinforcing that date and putting a statement on like, do not exceed the use-by date. Helping them to understand that they can freeze products right up to that date, and so moving away from the freeze on day of purchase statement that we're all familiar with. Also, it's about providing clear and consistent guidance on freezing and defrosting, as many people lack confidence in how to safely defrost products in this category. And then finally, packaging design and innovation, so in terms of pack sizes and product life extension. So here are some examples of action that has already been taken. We have on-pack guidance showing indication of suitability for freezing on front of pack. We can see an example of reinforcing the use-by date, so do not exceed the use-by date. And we can also see an example of an alternative to that freeze on day of purchase statement, and also some more specific defrosting guidance. So apologies for the quality of the images on this slide. And then finally, we have a couple of examples of the use of packaging innovation and technology in the form of skim packs and split packs. We also really like to see the Love Food Hate Waste logo and the website details with hints and tips on people's packaging, although we do realise that the packaging in this category, more often than not, has less space available than the fresh produce category that you can see here in the picture. What's also on this slide are some useful links that can take you to the Get Involved page on the Love Food Hate Waste website, which will essentially tell you how or what you can do to get involved in the Love Food Hate Waste campaign as a business and support it. And it includes access to free materials, plus a calendar of events with themes that you can join in with. So in terms of research and evidence, we have our main household food waste report that was published in 2013. We also have 2 reports which come from further analysis of that data, the product report and the people-focused reports, all of which can be really helpful in shaping your actions. So the product report, published in June 2014, includes information like the percentages of purchases wasted in the home, the size of individual instances of waste, which essentially shows that it's not all small bits, little bits and pieces of waste, and in fact there are significant quantities. Detailed reasons for disposal, so for example, information on whether a date label was cited or not in terms of the product being thrown away, the proportion of a pack that was wasted, whether items thrown away were actually whole or unopened, and also when waste is disposed of by meal occasion and by the day of the week. And then we have our product report, which was published in October 2014, and this looks at the influence of household size, age, busy lives, healthy eating and freshness, fussy eating, and also the presence of children and their effects on household food waste. And it also includes some discussion on the opportunities for industry to take action. So just a couple of slides to give you a flavour of the type of information that's in the product report. So 12% of all food and drink waste was disposed of in its original packaging, and where food was thrown away in its packaging, 43% contained more than 3/4 of their original contents. And you can see here that meat and fish were quite a large proportion of this at 12%. What you'll also find in that report is actual product level analysis. So this includes information on poultry, pork, including ham and bacon, and beef, which you might find useful. And essentially these products in this section of the report have been selected because they are an indicator of their broader food category. And also the products included in this section represent many of the products that contribute the largest proportion of waste levels in our homes, so about 40%. So moving on to product life, our recent work has shown us that there could be a real opportunity for helping consumers to reduce food waste. From a consumer point of view, not used in time, is the #1 reason for wasting food. And the research that we published earlier in the year indicates that there are a number of opportunities for action. And these are around challenging the food safety and quality buffers that are currently in place, and identifying supply chain improvements that can help and increase life made available to consumers, all without compromising food safety. And so we will be publishing some guidance in both of these areas in a few weeks' time, so hopefully you can look out for those and download those when they're published. So I just wanted to make you aware of our household food waste resource listing, which includes links to all of our research and evidence, which is grouped, as hopefully you can see on the slide, into useful headings. And the link to this is on the slide, so you'll be able to find the reports I've just talked about in there. So, and finally, just to highlight that later in the year, we'll be publishing our 2015 retail survey. And this will update the last one, which was done in 2011. And essentially, this survey looks at all of the changes to products, packaging and labelling and in-store activity that I've just been talking about. And it essentially gives us a view of how the industry has moved forward in implementing these recommended changes, and also a good source of ideas for people to take action. So we also have a couple of case studies coming out that involve some work which was actually done on fresh fruit, looking at the use of thermochromic inks on-pack guidance, and also the use of packaging technology to extend product life. So whilst these projects were done using fresh fruit, the learnings from this work can also be applied to meat, fish and poultry. And you'll have access to those case studies through the digest and the resource listing, and in fact the website as well. So just in summary, considering both supply chain and consumer food waste prevention, why would you take action? So hopefully you've already got a sense of that from what you've seen so far from mine and Philippa's presentations. So looking at the reasons why you might take action, there is potential to cut costs within your business. And in our work, we've seen that the average waste reduction potential for a manufacturing site is £1 million. Reducing food waste is important to customers, whether they be retail customers or actual consumers. And also minimising waste and extending life through supply chain improvements could in fact impact your product availability in store and lead to increased sales. You can make your supply chain more resilient by preventing waste of finite resources across the product life cycle, so from field to consumer, and this also reduces the associated risk of supply. You could reduce your environmental impact. Preventing 1 tonne of food waste prevents 5 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, and also can contribute to achieving your CSR targets. And then finally, working on food waste prevention will help you to ensure that your business complies with the waste hierarchy, which is in fact a legal requirement. So just to finish off, so if you were to make a start today, just in summary, we would suggest that you look at, from a supply chain point of view, using the 5-5-5 approach to identify opportunities and implement changes, as described by Philippa. That you look to initiate an employee engagement campaign using the Your Workplace Without Waste materials, and that you also consider redistribution of surplus food. And then from a consumer point of view, we would suggest that you get involved in the Love Food, Hate Waste campaign, and also have a look at your date labelling and on-pack guidance, and consider the role of packaging in consumer food waste prevention, and then think about how that you can promote that to consumers as well in terms of the information they can get and how important packaging is. So just a quick reminder about the digest, which will direct you to all of the information that you've seen in our presentations today for both supply chain and consumer. So on that note, that brings us to the end of our presentations for this afternoon, and we're going to move on now to a quick question and answer session. So thank you to those of you who've sent questions through. So we've just got a couple of questions here. One is asking for us to give a little bit more detail on the product life guidance. So essentially there are 2 documents with that. One on supply chain improvements, which really identifies the roles that can have an influence on that, and provides a set of questions to help identify opportunities for action. And it's actually split between manufacturers and retailers. And then the second one is on challenging those quality and safety buffers. So it includes a 5-step process, sort of worked example, and then a template for keeping a record of the information to back up any decisions that are made. I'm just going to hand over to Philippa now, who's got another question.
Hi, okay, I've got a question asking if I can say anything more about how the companies we've been piloting your workplace without waste are planning to implement the training. And yes, and this is quite interesting because everybody's doing it slightly differently. We worked with AB World Foods last week and did the initial kind of half-day train the trainer support with them. Now they're planning that the people that undertook that training to then go away and plan their waste reduction campaign generally, which will include employee engagement. So that's given them a real starting point for thinking about their waste reduction plans, and the rollout will come later. We're working with Heinz tomorrow, and they are planning to get their champions will be trained up, and they will be rolling out the activities straight away. So that's great. And then next week we're working with Muller Wiseman. Now they've actually decided to expand from just they've got a group of champions in the room next week, but rather than just do the half-day train the trainer element, which is sort of truncated and you just talk about the different activities, you don't actually run them. They actually want their champions to go through the whole thing. So we're doing a longer day with them there. And then the plan is that the champions roll that out to staff in November, as also in conjunction with the work they're doing on IGD's Working on Waste campaign. Now that's all about engaging employees, but about targeting them as consumers, and all of the stuff Sue's been going on about, and reducing food waste in the home. So it's really nice to run those two together, reinforcing reduced waste at home, reduced waste at work. So it's mutually beneficial. Okay, I'll hand you back to Sue.
Thanks, Philippa. I've just got one final question here, and it's around whether consumers actually to either notice or take any notice of the packaging innovations that are highlighted on the slide. So one of the things that I can say to that is that the research that we did on the report that I indicated showed that it wasn't just those 3 things that were highlighted as being the most useful. And consumers were also asked whether they actually noticed any of those innovations. And the one that they noticed most was actually the reclosable packaging. And they didn't necessarily notice any of the others or really understand their usefulness, or really the industry is trying to help them waste less food. So, you know, our recommendation would be to obviously try and, as I said, highlight those changes to consumers and almost shout about the changes that you're making, both in store and online and on pack, just really to highlight the changes that have been made and why they've been made and how consumers can get the best out of them. Okay, so that's the end of the questions. Before we go, I just wanted a quick reminder of a few items that will be coming soon. So we have the Food Waste Prevention Digest that was mentioned a couple of times. We have the Packaging Optimization Digest, which Philippa mentioned in her presentation. And then we have the Product Life Guidance, which we've just talked about. And then obviously we have the other webinars in this series. So you can request information or register for these using the email address that's on the slide. And we do in fact have a Product Life or a session dedicated to Product Life next week. So I'm just going to hand over to Helen now to close the session.
Just to end really by saying thank you for attending our webinar today, and we hope that you found it an interesting overview of food waste prevention for the meat, fish and poultry sectors. As I said at the beginning of the session, the webinar has been recorded and is going to be published on the WRAP website. We'll send you a link and some follow-up following this session. And please do share this webinar with your colleagues if you think they might find it of interest. Thank you very much to those who sent the questions in. If there's anything further or you have any comments, we have an email address which you can contact us at, which is foodspecialist@wrap.org.uk. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.